All right, and I saw Travis show up here, but here he comes again. He keeps missing, keeps coming in and leaving.
Maybe he saw who's in attendance, got scared.
Scares a lot of people off, no question. There he is.
Hi, Travis.
Hey, y'all.
Anthony, how are you, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm great, thank you. Good to see you all.
Good to see you too.
All righty. Well, I think we got Christine weighed in on the spreadsheet with lots of thoughts here. So, as did Travis. So, and let me come here. Do we want to share the screen? Does anybody mind if we share the screen with that?
I don't mind. We can share the screen. I also have it up in the background of my my computer. So whatever's easiest. There we go.
Can you see it? All
Yep.
right. Cool. All right. But Travis, why don't you go ahead and walk through your thoughts and issues here, then Christine can, and then we can see if we can make some decisions.
Sure. I put a note down on line. Oh, I thought I did. Is that the same one that I updated? Let's see. Always interesting. I was looking under Board of Alders.
Hmm.
I don't see it. It was the one that I had. Let me see. Anyway, I'll find out where it is. It's on the spreadsheet that I had sent over. But question as to whether the president of the Board of Aldermen role could be selected by the body versus a citywide election.
Uh-huh.
And just some thought around that. Despite what we've seen at the federal level in the House of Representatives recently, so we won't use that as our our illustration of what's good. In the past, there hasn't been the impetus for the president. We'll call it the president of the council, so we can start using some new language. But the council president to necessarily form alliances or coalitions within the body and work to create a shared agenda. That might have been more of a challenge, maybe at 28, but I think with 14 alders, it would just really curious as to other people's thoughts on what that might look like if that position was elected by the body. It would also, if ultimately we go away from E and A, it would mean that we wouldn't need a citywide elected person sitting on an E and A because the E and A may not exist.
Okay. So we're making a lot of recommendations here to increase democratic with a small d,
Sure.
democratic norms with,
Right.
changing voting, making it easier. We're proposing at least all those things. Do you see it, because we're doing those, having something that's not large or small d democratic and voted on? Do you see that as a conflict with that effort, or do you think it's just better government?
I think it's better government, and I actually think it works really well if the initiative moves forward to have more citywide, having the two alders from every district, one of which is elected citywide. I think that also reduces the need. If that takes place, I think it reduces the need to have the president of the council elected citywide.
Okay.
Travis, I definitely think it's something that gets talked about quite a bit, and has been something that other alder people, including myself, have kind of championed in the past. And I don't think not that it should matter, but if it does matter to folks, it would be something that President Green would also be interested in the possibility of changing. I think that she and I had both done research previously to kind of look at other legislative bodies, and I don't think we found one where the leader of that legislative body was not elected by the body itself. I think it helps move forward, like it encourages consensus building and the ability
Right.
to like move things forward. So I think it's
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
And so that's very helpful, Christine. Anthony, do you have thoughts on this?
I concur with the sentiment that's been shared so far, that position be elected by the body.
Okay. And then Travis brought up another issue, which I think is closely aligned with this, which I think there is a lot of interest in from the people we've spoken to, President Green and others, and that is having some members of the council be elected citywide. So they would clearly not have then we would have to divide the city into 12ths if it were 2 or 3 or whatever. Would they also be able to run within the board for president of the council? Would there be any prohibition there, I guess, is one thing to consider, but is that something that everybody is interested in?
I mean, we could almost go the route that that the president of the council is elected by the body, but it is to be considered, you have to be one of the 7 or however many alders that were elected citywide, right? So it's almost like a Congress and a Senate and Congress type of situation.
Well, that certainly makes it
right
easier.
now, Christine, I should know the answer to this question, but Megan she doesn't represent a ward also, correct? Like she
No,
just
she
runs
doesn't.
the BOA, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it would be an issue for and if we do have, again, maybe 2 members from each council or district, I think that there's some ways that it could work. Anthony, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, that was going to be my question, because once that person is elected to the president, leader of the council, you no longer have the at-large representative, but because they're one of 6, 7, the number that we choose, there should be representation. So no, that sounds good.
Yeah, if it's helpful information, one of the things that the stakeholder group that passed Prop R recently, which included the Citizens Commission on Redistricting and some of the other charter reform, considered very strongly and didn't because they thought they already had too much included, was to create 2 at-large positions that would represent the entire city, with the possibility of either making it 12 wards or keep 14 wards and add 2 positions. And one of those 2 positions would have been the voted at some point possibly to be the president of the board. So not adding any more, really, with the exception of the possibility of considering one more person.
So so it would be that there would be one person who runs citywide and keep 14 alders. Is that what you're saying,
I
Christine?
think it would be 2 if you also decided that you wanted the president of the board to be elected from within the body. Could consider having, I think it would be helpful to have at least 2 at-large folks. I think 1 would be possibly a lonely number, but I don't.
Yeah.
And do we worry at all about having the alder who is, or the councilman or council person who is elected to be president of the council, they will also have a ward that they will represent, unless they're one of the citywides who gets elected, then president of the council. But under the federal model, of course, the Speaker of the House also represents a district, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
All right, okay. Well, there has been a lot of interest in it, and it seems like we're all aligned, certainly on that first one, that the president of the city council could be elected from within the council. So do we want to consider drafting a charter amendment, or, is there research we need to do? I don't think. I mean, we've heard from a bunch of people. Do we want to try that out somewhere, get some input? What do you think?
Well, I think it was interesting that Christine mentioned that when she and others had looked across at other legislative bodies, it was more difficult to find one that had a citywide leader versus a elected by the body leader.
Yeah.
Um,
I have not fully reviewed the Kansas City Charter. I know that they have changed the system to be similar to what we're discussing today. So we could possibly grab some language there. I think it may help people to react to language, even if it's very, very rough.
yeah.
So the idea without a proposed amendment. So I would say, and I can grab that document, cut and paste for us and see what we want to massage from there.
Mhm.
My recommendation.
That'd be great.
That sounds good.
Be great. Good. And they have also, I forget how many at large there is. It 3 on their council?
I thought that Kansas City actually had 2 from each district. One was citywide elected and one was district elected, but I could be mistaken. I thought somebody had shared that information with me in the past, but
So
Yeah,
when,
I have some research on it too, because again, we looked at Kansas City as a model for the Prop R reform. So I'll see if I can hunt that down.
okay.
and when we did our round of endorsements for the Kansas City City Council, last cycle for, NARAL, there was gigantic, just gigantic relief at the structure their council had taken on and the citywide position. So I think that's a great model. So Christine, will you be able to capture that for us? Is that possible?
You mean by capture by note taking?
Or their structure? Yeah, the Kansas City
Yep.
is great. So yes. So
Oh, here I have this information here just from the Kansas City website, City of Kansas City. It's a 13-member city council. The mayor sits on the council. So they do not have a president of the council, it looks like. The other 12 members, Kansas City is divided into 6 districts. So the other 12 members, there's 2 members from each district. One is at large, one represents a district specifically.
And so if they run citywide, if they're how do they determine which district they get assigned to if they're at large?
I think that they have to live. I'm looking at this. I think it's to live in the district. So
Right.
it would be. I'm trying to think of like. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Let me just drop this into the Zoom here. I'll drop it into the chat in case you.
Right.
But anyway, I first just looked at numbers. Now then I could look a little bit closer at the. How the structure is set up.
I'll add that to the spreadsheet.
Okay, that's actually a better place to put it. Thanks, Christine. Instead of
Oh, sure. No, that's
Right.
fine.
a chat that might disappear.
Great. All right. That's fantastic. Okay. And then let me go back here.
So the other thing, the other thing that I was looking at was the Board of Public Service, but I'm seeing on our spreadsheet that we've struck that.
Yeah, we don't have that charter article.
Oh, okay.
We don't?
No,
No,
we have
Board of Elections.
1 through 6 and then 20 and 23.
Oh, I thought we had that. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. I do think under special taxing bills, that's Article 23. We could consider asking Rich Bradley from the Board of Public Service to come.
Mhm.
The specific charter amendment 13 is under working group 1.
Okay.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, never mind. I have thoughts on it, but not for this group. I'll keep them to
Well,
myself now.
Be good for the group, be good for the charter commission. What are you thinking?
Oh, I would love to hear a presentation from the Board of Public Service because it seemed quite interesting to have department heads that that are organized in a formal board. I would just like to learn a little bit more about why it was structured that way and hear from the. I don't see an issue with those department heads meeting on a regular basis, but as a formal board, it seemed odd. And we don't. I was looking, and then I started looking at our org chart, and we don't have a director of public service. So anyway, just curious.
Back to what you read, Travis, on the Kansas City charter.
Yeah.
Pros and cons to the mayor leading the city council as opposed to electing president?
I mean, I think that's more of a like a council mayor, was it a council mayor model, or I can't know what the terminology is, but it's I see that as a fewer checks and balances, where you then have the executive branch and the legislative branch a little too overlapped, as opposed to having a true executive branch and a true legislative branch. That would just be my 2 cents. I kind of like, branches of government and checks and balances. And I know that there was, I can't remember who mentioned it at our last meeting, but I know that President Green has made some overtures and indications of trying to focus more on the legislative agenda for the BOA. I mean, I think that they're separate roles, separate talents, separate strengths.
Wow. And having a strong executive function in the mayor's office is a good thing. So yeah, I concur. Oh, all right. Was everybody comfortable with the proposals under elections and the recall in the questions which we got here? Because when you get down to initiatives and referenda, and when I worked in politics, we had a couple of initiatives, city initiatives that we won, which were great. I don't think I've ever seen a referendum against a board bill, ever. And when you read why, you can, I mean, on both of them, it's unless you're super well-heeled and have a gigantic amount of backing, either the initiative or the referenda are almost impossible to do without a big bankroll. So, and for my sense, particularly on the initiative, I think it would be helpful to make it simpler and easier to have citizen-led initiatives that don't need to be, civic progress led in order to get on the ballot. And now, unless you have that kind of backing in cash, there's no way you get on the ballot. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't find anybody that had any recollection of a referendum on the ballot.
So
Well, I'm
Scott,
twice as old
what
as
is
you.
what are you recommending?
So on the initiative,
Mhm.
the first off, moving them to August and November is going to
Right.
make it a
Yep.
lot, a lot better fought.
Mhm.
The yes and no provisions are exactly the opposite of what you would think yes and no mean. So I think
Mhm.
that's probably something we should change. And the other thing is it requires a collection of 10% of the signatures of registered voters in the city, which is 20,000. Standard rule of thumb is that you collect about 50 to 60,000 signatures to do that
Mhm.
at $2 to $4 of signature cost. It just makes it a finished signature cost. You're at $100,000. If it were half of that, a grassroots group,
Mhm.
like an Action or somebody like that, probably could put one on there and let people decide.
Yeah. Okay.
Comes onto the ballot is where I think it is. And it also, it makes it easier for corporate interests too. And again, what I think is great is putting them all on to either August or November, levels the playing field
Mhm.
for everyone. And if we lower the impediments to getting items on the ballot, we'll have more participation by the citizens.
So that was that's the simplification that you were referring to there.
Yeah,
Got it. Okay, thanks.
yeah.
So I guess I would ask why the impediments have been put in place, and if they are, what are the best boundaries, guardrails, filters to know what should be on the ballot? So there's a reason why the number has been set at 10%. Why a supermajority, 3/5 as opposed to a simple majority, and I wonder if that may be helpful in ensuring that we don't just load the ballot with referenda that should not be on the ballot.
Well, I can tell you my stock thought on that, Anthony, is that I think that all of these anti-democracy provisions were probably brought on at one point by a white majority to
Recording in progress.
limit the ability of a minority in the city to have effective voice or take power. So
Yeah, I would back that up, Scott. I think a lot of what's in here is just very archaic, and at the time that it was put in place, there was a very elite group of people who wanted to stay in power, and that's not dissimilar to now. And I guess I will say just anecdotally, based on my own observations from being at City Hall for 10 years, is that the voters are telling us more and more at the ballot through local and state initiative petition processes that they don't like what their elected officials are doing. We're not delivering, or they haven't been delivering what is expected, and so that's why the signatures get collected. And so I think we need to be thoughtful. To Anthony's point, we don't want to have everyone with some sort of harebrained idea be able to get something on the ballot, but the threshold right now is just too high because of the sheer cost and time it takes to do something.
yeah. And I mean, the other thing, I think it's good for democracy. It lets more people participate in the process. And I think it's also something that, along with making it easier to vote or mail-in voting, all these things just makes it more democratic. And I think there are also items that might pass at the ballot box. So, yeah. I mean, I gotta be honest, for the life of me, I'm not sure why 3/5 majority for charter amendments, why a simple majority isn't good enough at any point. Yeah, I mean, I just find that strange. So. But the other thing too, because it did cover the Charter Commission and it, and maybe this isn't important, but it just seems like we've created a real hothouse and a real tense situation. And we're going to be constricted. And I think there's already some concerns that if we put more than 3 or 4 things on the ballot, maybe it'll be a problem or too much. It's like, why is this only once every 10 years instead of an ongoing function?
I think it should be an ongoing function.
Yeah, that was my thought.
I
It
mean,
was-
yeah, I believe that. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. One, if you see something that's broken, we don't want to wait. We don't want to wait 6 years, 7 years to fix it. Secondly, what I would want to avoid is if you don't like who's in office, don't change the charter just to hamstring them. Or if you like who's in office, don't change the charter to give them more power. I mean, I think that's why, the thing that I appreciate about this commission is, as I tell a lot of people, as I talk about it is, don't think of these charter changes to reflect the people in power today. It's not made to make the mayor or the president of the Board of Aldermen's job easy or more difficult. They're structural changes for the city longer term. And so I think if we had the ability to change it at any time, I think that we run the risk of modifying it to help an incumbent or a candidate. That's the only thing that I would think about.
I agree, and I think that's being borne out here, Travis.
Mhm.
I love the mayor and I appreciate that she appointed me here, but I'm not sure in her heart of hearts she's going to be thrilled about a stronger board of aldermen and a more activist board, city council. But somebody will appreciate that, hopefully citizens. So yeah. But I think having it be an ongoing activity is a great thing. So I'm not sure how we would do it in staggered terms and appointments and all that, but I think it's worth bringing back to the group to discuss.
Yeah.
And then, does anybody have any strong feelings about the referendum? Because that's even harder than an initiative to get on the ballot. And again, I've never seen one where there's an ordinance passed and people can run a electoral campaign to overturn an ordinance.
Like I said, I can't remember one from I've lived in the city from the time I could vote when I was 18 to now, and I'm 48. I can't remember a time where that happened, and no one with whom I spoke could recall one either. I mean, I guess we could reach back out to the Board of Elections. I think somewhere else you had a couple more questions for them to get their thoughts on it as a possibility, or I'd be happy to do some research to see if we can find other local governments that have had something similar pass. I understand the value, I think, but in practice, I don't know how important it is or how it really works.
Yeah, me neither. And it was also, it's arcane as it can be. I'd almost think about stripping it, although since no one's ever done it, maybe it doesn't matter. But if we can strengthen and simplify the initiative process, that's probably more than enough. So. And literally, I don't think I've never, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've never had I can't remember a referendum, but it would be worth having the two gents from the Board of Elections. They were really helpful to have a follow-up meeting if we could.
Yep. Yeah, if
Yeah.
it's okay, once we go through all of these notes, I'd like to, before we break, just look at the dates we have coming up and figure out who we need to ask when and whether or not we might need to have a special meeting or two to get the number of folks we need in by the time we need to get them in.
And and you've got a good follow-up on all these, Christine. Thank you. And we've got, I think, large agreement on the Board of Aldermen consider having a president, and then some sort of citywide elected. And look, I think we'll have to revisit that again once we see a little bit more, but certainly I think we've all coalesced around, let's propose that the president of the board be voted within the board, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
definitely.
All right. And then I think there's good agreement on our initiative effort and begin to look at that, and we'll have those guys back. And then the license taxes, I quit counting at 25 things that no longer exist that we could tax if we wanted to. And who would come and talk to us about that? Would it be the license collector?
I think we should definitely consider her opinion, but I also think that it might be, they're a bit of a disorganized group. But I think especially like small business owners. I have just happened to have from the pandemic. I don't know how I ended up being the de facto person for small businesses in the city, but I've got a listserv of about, I think about 100 or 200 businesses that I communicated regularly with during the pandemic. And so I could send an email to that group to see if anybody might be interested in talking to us. I think it would be good to hear from that perspective, maybe what's working and what's not.
That sounds fantastic, Christine. What do you think, Travis?
Yeah, and Christina, didn't somebody establish a red tape commission or something along those lines?
Daniela.
Okay.
Oldenburg is the chair, and then
Okay.
in truly an Onion article move, the special committee on red tape created a subcommittee on red tape that's led by Daniela Velasquez. And
Okay.
just to be candid, nothing's happened yet. So if we can,
Okay.
if at some point we can, maybe partner or incorporate, but right now I think
Okay.
this asking businesses to come would be more than they've done to date.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay, I've got that on my list too. And and license collector as well. Are you all fine with that?
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be fair, it's been many years since I've paid I mean, I have accountants or CFOs who do that stuff for me. What's it take to pay a license in the city? I mean, I would like to have the license collector tell us, is it electronic? Can you look it up? Is there a website? Is it all that stuff, right?
It's
So-
pretty archaic.
All right.
And Director Ingrassi, is that based upon the charter? Do we have to dictate modernization? Is that a decision of the mayor's office?
Not really. It's tricky because from a legal perspective, I don't know if I'll be able to answer your question completely intelligently because it's a county office and there's that fracturization, but
Right.
licenses and taxes are in the charter, so the local government will play a role somehow in that.
Okay.
So it's not a great answer, but I'll try and get some more information before we decide to, whatever session of our meetings we decide to talk about this article.
And on special tax bills, what are the ones in your experience that you've seen, Christine?
The special tax bills I can think about or that I know about are the, like, for example, if the building division goes in to like mothball a problem property and does the work themselves for the city, then the city has the ability to put that bill on the tax bill. So those are the types of things, but I honestly, I don't know enough about it. That's why I like went through the article to read what it was about and thought that these folks might be smart to come before us. The collector of revenue is the one who puts the bill on the tax, like puts a special bill on the tax bill, and the other two offices have some role as well.
Okay. Sounds pretty messy. All right. Well, do we have enough follow-up items here? It seems like we have quite a few to work on and perfect and begin to figure out what we think we should recommend. So, I mean, we're building probably close to a dozen possible charter amendments or combining them in some fashion. So it seems like we're creating a lot, but
I can do some further research on Kansas City, just as, because I do find it interesting, not that we're going to change the number of wards that we have or increase the number of people on the Board of Alders, but I do find it interesting that they have 2 representatives from each district, one elected at large and one elected to serve the district. And what that says to me is that, we've run into in the past an alder person being hyper focused on just what happens in their ward and may have a limited perspective on what happens across the city or how what happens in one part of the city affects their ward or vice versa. Having a district representative plus another representative that was elected citywide just seems like a really, I don't know, it's curious. I mean, but they also have, the mayor is the president of the council, so I think that there's some challenges that would come with that. That's not, I think, for a city our size, even though we're not growing in the right direction. I don't think we want to have the mayor as the president of the council.
I agree with that. I also think that their district representation or the way that they do folks representing more than just a district is seemingly unnecessarily confusing.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about it. I mean, maybe it's working really well. And
yeah, I'll dig into it between now and next time we meet. Put some notes on our spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Are we meeting then? Is it not next Thursday, but the Thursday after? So right after our public hearing as well, correct?
I think so, yeah.
The 25th is our next meeting.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
When do you think we need to have all of our interviews wrapped up?
End of February.
Yeah. So we've got January 25th, February 8th, and February 22nd. We've got the license collector of revenue, assessor, Board of Elections, and other people to reschedule. So I don't know, it's probably not very likely we can get that all done in 3 meetings. Unless maybe we come up with a list of questions to send to people to ask them to answer. Otherwise, I guess I'd recommend, although I know how everyone hates to add more meetings, maybe adding 1 or 2 more meetings to talk to folks.
Well, I think if we went into March, it would be fine. I mean, we're not at a place where we're a blank page anymore. We're beginning to think through some things that we can give input on as well. So,
When is our timeline? I know it got pushed out, but I'm failing on remembering what you all voted on in terms of having the next steps done, this, whatever this spreadsheet piece is.
Um,
I can go back and look if nobody else remembers either.
like something in April or May comes to mind, right?
I thought it was April.
Yeah. Like April 16th or something, but I can't remember.
Okay, so we could add March 14th and March 28th for invitations for interviews with folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Christine, in terms
Are
of
we,
drafting our language here, do you think it's something we should take a shot at? Should we enlist a city councilor? What do you think?
For which language?
When we decide, here's the draft charter amendments, is this something we should just craft ourselves?
I would ask the city councilor's office for support in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. I like this group. Y'all are a good
So-
group.
so Christine, our goal will be to try to fit these groups into the next 4 meetings, or we're gonna add a special meeting?
Well, if you all are okay with pushing out to March, then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings left, and that still gives us time before April, I guess, or I can try and just do 1, 2, 3, 4, March 14th to get folks in. So that you have more time. I don't know that, like, in terms of actually having charter amendments drafted, I think I don't know that it makes sense that we have all of that done by April, and some of this is also going to be dependent on what we hear back from residents in the community hearings.
Yeah, I mean, I think the public hearings are going to help shape, what language and what change, even what amendments, we should be considering.
Okay, well then I'll just go ahead and try my best to get folks scheduled by March 14th. I'll leave March 28th open in case we have some stragglers. But if you all have the time to pop into the spreadsheet, if there are any specific questions, it may help us use our time more wisely if we send a list of things for interviewees to be prepped with.
This spreadsheet.
Yeah, if it makes
Mhm.
sense, like in the notes
Yeah.
section or something, if you just pop some questions in, then and I'll add a second tab to the spreadsheet of who I'm trying to schedule when. So I think if we just, even if it's just a day or two heads up, if we're able to prep the people that we're speaking to with some of the talking points we're interested in covering, that will help maybe make our time more efficient.
Great. I'm
Okay.
all in favor of that.
Mhm.
And can I get some input from all of you guys
Mhm.
about our meeting the other night? So, I think this is, warts and all, a really good process and very democratic in how we're doing it, and
Mhm.
God knows it's like we're making everything public and publishing. It's not maybe easy for people to get to, but it just seems like having a public information officer from the city councilor's office assigned to this commission would just make it so easy to promote it, both proactively, but also the real nuts and bolts of
Sure.
announcements and getting them on community calendars and all that. And while those people have work that they do now, it seems like if someone was assigned, it would be an interesting task, and it would greatly ease this without a budget requirement, right?
Mhm.
So and it just seems like all of this is public relations. It's all simple PR stuff that people do all the time. You know, issuing a press release, a press announcement, community, you know, a community billboard listing,
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. And I was going to send a letter to Travis, you, and the chairwoman,
Jasmine. Yeah,
to and then copy everybody, just making that suggestion.
yeah. I think it's a good suggestion. Um, I'm not sure. I don't know what staff the city councilor's office has, if they have a PIO in place right now or not, but I think it's a good suggestion, Scott. I welcome it.
Anthony, any thoughts?
I tend to agree. It seems like we're trying to put together a marketing strategy, but I'm sure there's one that already exists that works well for our community. And we can tap into that through PIO, through whatever the systematic, whatever the means is. I think that would be more effective than us trying to figure it out. I also think, though, that in many cases, we're making things much more complicated than they need to be. And I think with women voters putting together 2 town halls within 2 weeks with no money, no support, and no backing from us, that we could have done that in September. And so I think it shows that the need for that marketing, but also us just to do some things and to
Yeah.
learn along the way, and that's okay.
Well, that's my call in 11 minutes is chatting with them. So
Good, outstanding. All right. Well, great. Well, this was productive.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and drop off here so I can grab another cup of tea before that meeting with the League of Women Voters and others. Take care, everybody.
Christine, we
Thanks, all.
can't thank you enough. Appreciate it.
Sure, happy to help. Thanks, Scott.
All right, take care now. Bye-bye.